ahead, Ed.
Just a few questions, a couple areas I want to cover with you, if you don't mind. I think you indicated that as the officer in charge of this case, one of your functions was to track down all leads.
That is correct.
I heard you say that.
Or all possible leads.
All possible leads. All right. And now you talked about some air fresheners in the area of the bathroom.
Correct.
That's not that unusual for people to have air fresheners in and around their bathroom. You're not trying to suggest that, are you?
I'm not suggesting that it's unusual to have an air freshener in your bathroom.
Thank you. Is it unusual for people to have wooden matches in their bathroom?
No, it would not be unusual for people to have that.
Okay. You learned from talking with probation officer Corey Towler that it was her feeling that Jason might have harmed himself.
You mean Ramsay?
I'm sorry, Ramsay.
Yes, she did indicate that she thought he may harm himself or be suicidal.
And, yeah, you took that to mean it was likely that he was suicidal. Did you follow up on that in any way? Did you check the probate court records?
I did not check probate records. For that, my concern is more to locate the individual before they have an opportunity to harm themselves.
You identified for us what was, it's been referred to in some cases as a vacuum cleaner and in other cases as a carpet shampooer. In any event, it's the shark. Correct?
Correct.
And just for point of clarification, can you tell us for sure whether it's a vacuum cleaner or a carpet shampooer?
I believe it is a vacuum based upon the canister in the front appears to be one of those wind tunnel bagless type vacuum cleaners.
And from the photograph, there's no visible water tank that would actually hold shampoo or water, anything like that.
No, there wasn't.
So you're pretty satisfied that it was a vacuum cleaner?
In my opinion, yes. I thought it was a vacuum cleaner.
And you think it was purchased the first week in January of that year?
I do believe so, yes.
Was there another vacuum cleaner in the house?
Yes, there was.
And would you describe that?
It was a brown, also same, similar, if I'm not mistaken, type bagless vacuum cleaner that was located in the basement.
Okay, so there was one vacuum cleaner. Now this is a townhouse, so it has a basement, a first floor, and a second floor.
Correct.
And there was one vacuum cleaner located in the basement.
Correct.
How old did it appear to be?
I did not really look at it or examine it that closely. In my opinion, I didn't believe it to be that old because of it being bagless.
And the vacuum that we saw up on the screen, that was located on the second floor?
Correct, in the northwest bedroom, which would have been Donna's bedroom.
Do you suppose it's unusual for a homeowner with a townhouse to have more than one vacuum cleaner?
I personally have one vacuum cleaner in my home. So yes, I don't know why a person would have two vacuum cleaners.
Well, isn't it so that maybe that perhaps a person doesn't want to schlep the cleaner from the basement to the first floor to the second floor? Isn't that a possibility?
That would be a possibility. Yes.
Okay. So nothing insidious about owning two vacuum cleaners?
No.
All right. You mentioned the Carhartt jacket.
That is correct.
Your testimony was that Donna Scrivo told you that Ramsay was wearing a Carhartt jacket. Now, is Carhartt a style?
I believe it's a brand name for a construction type, heavier, maybe more winter type jacket.
It's the particular brand name of a canvas type jacket. And do you know if they still manufacture those?
I believe they do.
All right. So it's not anything that has any particular rarity?
No.
It's a common item?
Yes.
Did you ever determine whether or not Ramsay's father owned a Carhartt jacket?
No.
You knew he was in the construction business?
Correct.
And these are types of jackets normally worn by construction workers?
That people who may work outside during the winter months.
They don't ration these things, do they?
As far as you're only allowed one per customer?
Exactly. Or is it one per customer?
No, not that,
Okay.
not to my knowledge.
People can have more than one.
Correct.
All right. Okay, so nothing particularly insidious or criminal about the air fresheners or the wooden matches in the bathroom. The gloves that you identified in Exhibits 133, these are the gray fingerless gloves and the brown stretchy kind of gloves. Did they have any burn marks on them? If you recall.
I'm sorry, I don't recall. By exhibit number, were those the ones found at the crime scene or the ones found in the condominium?
I believe these were the ones found. You said that you found them at the condominium. The gray fingerless and the brown stretchy.
Those from the condominium did not have any burn marks. They appeared to be new.
Did they have any labels on them?
Not that I observed.
They appeared to be unworn?
Yes.
All right. You found some medicine in a bedroom closet. Can you tell me what medicine you found in there?
There were several different types of prescriptions. We only retrieved one empty bottle from the northwest closet that was Donna.
Did the bottle have a label on it?
It did.
And do you recall what the label said?
I believe it was a prescription for Donna Scrivo, dated 12/27 of 2013, and the prescription was trazodone, and the quantity was 200.
And it was empty?
And that one was empty.
Did you do any follow-up to discover what trazodone is typically prescribed for?
I believe that I looked on the drugs.com website, and I believe that it is some type of psych medicine, or maybe a depression type medicine.
And based on what you learned about Ramsay, that's no big surprise that he would be prescribed psych medicine.
Right, but that was prescribed to Donna, not to Ramsay.
I'm sorry, that was prescribed to Donna.
Donna, correct.
What medicines were prescribed to Ramsay?
The Lavox, or...
I got it. I'm with you. I picked the short name when at all possible.
The Xanax.
Good.
We did a MAPS, which is a law enforcement tool that we can research to see who's been prescribed what. We did a MAPS. There may have been another prescription on there that I'm just not recalling.
The DEA requires dispensers, pharmacies, to keep a record of who's getting what.
Correct.
And that's basically what you're talking about when you say MAPS.
That is correct.
All right, so you have access to that where I wouldn't, bless you, people on the jury wouldn't have that access, but you have that access. So you use that tool, and what prescriptions did you determine Ramsay was actively filling?
At the time, and I would really need to review the maps to tell you, but I believe that, I know the Xanax had not been recently filled, and maybe the Lavox may have been, and I can't recall another prescription that was on there.
So you're satisfied that at some point in the not too distant past, Ramsay had been prescribed Xanax?
Yes, he had been.
And he had filled those prescriptions?
He had, but I believe they ceased when he went on his probation with the drug testing.
Right, and that's been developed from other witnesses, but it's fair to say he's familiar with the effects and side effects, if there are any, of taking Xanax.
I would assume so.
All right. So you found 3 prescription bottles, you said, in Donna's purse. and if you need to refer to your notes, that's perfectly acceptable. One was Xanax, the second was Luvox, and what was the third one?
Since we get to use short names, Synthroid, which
Good.
is for people with thyroid problems.
Okay. Nothing earth-shaking about her taking that, right?
No.
And these were all prescribed to Donna?
No, the Luvox was prescribed to Ramsay.
Ramsay's, okay.
The Xanax and the Synthroid were in Donna's name.
So the Luvox was an antidepressant prescribed for Ramsay.
Correct.
Okay. Now the Xanax, you said that was filled on the 6th of January?
That is correct.
And the amount in the prescription was 90 tablets?
Correct.
There was 1.5 left.
Correct.
That meant that 88.5 had been taken out of the bottle.
Correct.
Now the directions said up to 3 per day.
Correct.
Just doing the math, assuming the prescription was filled on the date indicated on the bottle, January 6th, and assuming the person started taking the prescribed dosage that day, that would only account for 75 tablets thereabout.
Actually, 78.
78. And then if you add the 1.5, did the bottle say anything about taking a half a tablet?
No, it didn't.
So if you take the 78 and add the 1.5 left, you have 79.5. That means 10.5 are unaccounted for.
Correct.
Now we're assuming when you get to the 78 number, you're assuming that the person only takes the maximum per day, 3.
Correct.
Right? If they took more than 3, they were having a bad day, and they took maybe 4 for a few of those days, that could easily account for the missing 10.5.
Or the person has a problem with Xanax, because Xanax is very addictive. So if you're having an issue of addiction with Xanax, that would account for missing pills.
Theoretically, if you're taking more for whatever reason, having a bad day or an addiction, that could easily account for the missing 10.5.
Correct.
All right. The basement was searched, and you were asked a question about power tools.
Mm-hmm.
You noted 3 power saws, right?
Yes.
You also said there was a compressor.
An air compressor, yeah.
For air tools.
Yes. I
Now-
would assume.
Okay. Or pumping up tires, whatever.
Yes, I don't use
All right.
air compressors.
The power saws, were they electric or were they pneumatic, or do you know?
I know that there was a table saw, a circular saw, and a miter saw. I believe, to the best of my recollection, that the miter saw was electric. I am not sure about the table saw nor the circular saw.
Of those 3, obviously the table saw isn't very portable. It sits right where you leave it, right?
Yes.
Okay. And the other 2, the circular saw and the miter saw, those are considered hand power tools?
I don't have a lot of knowledge of tools, and I don't have a lot of knowledge of saws. When I looked at them, I didn't think any of them really looked that they would be that portable.
Well, let's
I thought they looked heavier.
start with the circular saw. Can you just give me a general description?
If I'm not mistaken, I believe it's got a guard and a big saw that is circular.
Does it have a handle?
It may. If I had pictures, I would probably be able to point
No.
out which was which.
No photographs?
Sorry.
Well, how big was the the circular saw in terms of relating it to a bread box?
It would, I believe, would have been probably maybe bigger than a bread box.
Bigger than a bread box?
And it says it-
Did it have its own stand?
Not that I recall seeing.
And you don't recall whether or not it had a handle?
I don't recall.
Do you recall whether or not it had a electrical cord?
The circular saw? No,
Right.
I don't remember.
Okay. You asked a registered nurse to do an examination of Mrs. Scrivo?
Correct. She was the same forensic nurse.
And just for the jury's edification, what do the initials SANE, S-A-N-E, stand for?
I believe it's sexual abuse nurse.
Sexual assault nurse examiner?
That could yes.
Okay. And there was nothing about this case that involved any alleged or probable or possible sexual assault, right?
Correct.
Okay. That's just the name that the nurses go by or that the facility goes by.
Correct.
Because it's typically used in those instances.
Correct.
Okay. So that name, just to get it out there, has nothing to do with this case, right?
For sexual assault, no.
Yeah, this wasn't a sexual assault case.
No.
Did you, now you said you were present part of the time that the nurse conducted the examination.
Correct.
What did you see the nurse do?
At the time that I stayed with the nurse, I observed her photographing the injuries to her hands and on her wrist. After that, I had to go and attend to other duties upstairs.
Did you subsequently receive a report from the nurse?
Yes, I did.
And you recall the nurse's name?
No.
Would it have been Brenda Wade?
Yes.
Okay. And did you review the report after receiving it from Brenda Wade?
Yes.
If I can approach the bench, I want to hand you a document and ask you to look it over, take all the time you need, and tell me if you can recognize.
Yes, I remember this document.
And is that in fact the report you received from Miss Wade?
Yes, it is.
Okay. At this point, Your Honor, I'd move for admission of this evidence. It's been marked for identification purposes as Defense Exhibit E. It is the worksheet and the notes of Miss Brenda Wade, the sane nurse which this witness assigned the case.
No, we have no objection. It will be received.
All right. You can refer to that.
Thank you.
The report indicates that Nurse Wade took swabs from the insides of Donna Scrivo's mouth.
Correct.
She took swabs from her hands and from her ears.
Correct.
And she took cuttings from her fingernails.
Correct.
She took scrapings from other parts of her body.
I thought the scrapings only were from her right and left nail beds.
Okay, those are parts of her body, correct?
Correct.
What else did the nurse do? If you need to review the report, that's fine.
The very bottom, but I'm assuming that's the left ear. I believe you covered it.
All right. And what was done with the samples that Ms. Wade took?
The samples were committed to a box, of which is sealed by the forensic nurse. I then take that box and it's submitted with other evidence for DNA analysis. They're also looking if there's any trace blood evidence. skin cell evidence, and that's pretty much it.
What was going through your head? What was your goal when you asked the same nurse to conduct this examination on Mrs. Scrivo?
From my training and experiences in law enforcement, a lot of times, even though that there may be a day or so in between when somebody either committed a crime which would produce some type of an injury involving blood, a lot of times that the nail beds are, blood will get in there where they're actually not cleaned out totally. So sometimes we can find some trace evidence, be it either skin cells or blood of the victim in a suspect's fingernails.
So you say after the nurse took these samples from Mrs. Scrivo, the samples were forwarded to a lab for analysis?
Yes, they were.
And are you familiar with the lab's findings?
Yes, I am.
All right. Was any of Ramsay Scrivo's blood found in any of the nail scrapings of Donna Scrivo?
No.
Was any of Ramsay Scrivo's DNA found in any of the nail scrapings of Donna Scrivo?
No.
Was any of Ramsay Scrivo's blood or DNA found in any of the hair samples the nurse took from Donna Scrivo?
No.
Was any of Ramsay Scrivo's blood, DNA, skin, bodily fluids found anywhere on Mrs. Scrivo?
No.
The nurse also took the time to examine her fully undressed and noted some remarkable injuries about her body. Isn't that so?
Yes.
She found an injury on Mrs. Scrivo's lower lip.
I don't believe that was a injury.
How did the nurse describe it?
Purple-green flakes on lip.
Purple-green flakes on lip. And it was apparently unusual enough for the nurse to note in her report. What else did the nurse say about the lip, if anything?
That's the only thing that in the diagram that is referenced in the lip.
And after the examination was over, did you ask Donna about that purple-green whatever on the lip?
No, at that point I had ceased communication with her.
What other marks or noteworthy items did the nurse note on Mrs. Scrivo's body?
She had indicated that there was a green bruise that looks like in the chest, breast area, that there was a bruise on her wrist, which was purple and green. The inside of her elbow had a purple-green bruise round. There were red scabbed areas on the inside of her feet, a pink scratch located, I believe it's on her other foot, a broken scabbed toenail, there was also a red area located midsection on her back.
So there were a number of noteworthy areas on her body, many of them bruises, many of them undefined, some of them indicating injuries, some not. Is that a fair summation?
Yes.
Okay. And I asked about the lip. After the examination, did you ask Donna about these bruises and other marks that the nurse found?
No, As I stated before, I did not have any contact with Donna after the sane nurse. I had a conversation prior to her exam.
All right. Thank you for that. May I disclose this report to the jury, Your Honor?
Sure.
I think I read in your, I believe I read in your report that you did some searching up by way of Facebook.
I had accessed Donna Scrivo's Facebook account on Facebook.
And what was your purpose in accessing her Facebook account?
To see if there was anything noteworthy, anything that would help or assist in my investigation.
I'm going to hand you what's been previously identified as Exhibit C from the defense, blue folder containing a dozen or so pages. Can you tell me if you recognize the material in that folder?
I recognize the first photo, or this first page, second page.
Is that first page, is that the wall or the home page of Mrs. Scrivo's Facebook account?
Yes.
Okay. You've seen that before?
Yes.
All right. And what was your purpose in accessing her Facebook account?
Looking to see if what kind of communications were out there, looking for anything that would possibly assist my investigation.
Were you looking for necessarily incriminating evidence?
Yes and no.
And did you find any incriminating evidence?
No.
When was the last entry that Donna Scrivo put up in her Facebook, on her wall, or on her page?
I believe it would have been December 18th of 2013.
Okay, so that's a month and a half before your investigation began.
Correct.
And you found nothing noteworthy in terms of your criminal investigation.
I found one post that she did that I found interesting, and it was a post in regards to her assisting somebody, a gentleman, a young man, who had some kind of car problem, and she had to lift something heavy, and she referred that she had, she was thankful that she said that she had her daddy's superior upper body strength.
And what's the date of that post?
July 30th of 2013.
So that's even farther removed than the post in December.
Correct.
Was there anything else incriminating, at least in your view, in her Facebook account?
No, I think that was the only thing that I found to be somewhat interesting.
Okay. And you didn't ask her about that?
No.
All right. Your Honor, at this point, I'm going to move this witness has laid a foundation for the admission of Defense Exhibit C, the Facebook posting of Mrs. Scrivo.
I certainly haven't seen it before now, Your Honor, so I guess I can take a look at it.
You know, I apologize. I just assumed that it had been in the case file, and if you knew that, forgive me.
All right, continue with your examination. While I'm
Very well.
looking at that.
We know that you had a sit-down with the neighbor of Ramsay's, Darsha Plant.
Yes.
And there was some indication from her that about the time in question that Ramsay died, that she believed she had seen a stranger exiting his unit or the unit next door, but in any event, one of those two units.
Yes, she made that statement.
And based on that information, did you do any kind of follow-up?
No.
And you also had some patrol officers do a canvass of the area of Gary Lane
Correct.
Simultaneously, you directed officers to canvass the area of the Rosedale house.
Correct.
That's the house that belonged to Donna that she lived in prior to the fire.
Correct.
And after the fire is when she moved in with Ramsay.
Correct.
And they were both living at Rosedale. Why did you feel it necessary to canvass the Rosedale area?
When we canvassed Rosedale, we at that time had not known where the crime scene actually was. We thought that we would just go ahead and talk to neighbors and get a head start on that. But at that time, we still were not, we had no knowledge that the crime scene actually pertained only to Gary Lane.
Now, the official case file contains a notation from one of the street officers indicating that a Rosedale neighbor whose name is listed as Lori, L-O-R-I, Krim, K-R-I-M, stated that she observed a white male walking in the area and that person was looking very suspicious. Do you have knowledge of that notation?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so you were aware of that. Was any follow-up done?
No.
All right. So you have some information, albeit sketchy, that a suspicious man is leaving the Scrivo condominium on Gary Lane. You also have information that a suspicious-looking white male is lurking about Rosedale. And are you telling me that doesn't set off your spider senses? That doesn't raise a red flag?
Just to correct your one statement, it was not, Darcia Plant, when I spoke with her in her kitchen, stated she was not sure. She saw somebody. She did not know if they came out of Ramsay's condo or if they came out of the next door condo. She was very limited in information as to what she gave us.
Well, we heard from her yesterday, and we know that her information was sketchy, but it was one of those two units, either Ramsay's or the one on the other side of Ramsay.
Correct. The reason there was no follow-up, there was nothing for me to follow up on. In speaking with other witnesses that we had for this case, no one else indicated that they had seen anybody in the area coming in, coming out of Ramsay's, and the exact opposite, that very few people were ever seen coming in or out of Ramsay's condo.
And that's the point, isn't it? Very few people would have reason to come in and out of that condo, and now you have a witness who's saying, I think I saw something. And you have another witness at the house, and you thought it was important for officers to canvass that area, and another witness says, you know what, I saw something. And then there's no follow-up.
Reason, once again, Rosedale, by the time that I was made aware of the results of the canvassing, which were pretty much within the first 32 hours that we were working the case, we called people in with significant information to have an interview. Because we knew at that time that Gary Lane, in fact, was our crime scene, that from doing the search warrant over on Rosedale, that there was no evidentiary value of Rosedale, nor did we believe anything had been involved with the case and the Rosedale house. So therefore, a suspicious person walking down the street, if they were that suspicious, I guess my question to Lori Krim would have been, if you felt there was something up with that person, why didn't she call police and alert police that, knowing Donna's house is under construction, as to a suspicious person being there? In fact, the person gave our officer limited information about Lori Krim, and at that time, no follow-up was done on my part due to my, the other detectives that are assisting me also evaluated what her statement was and felt that there was nothing of importance to discuss with her.
In all fairness to Miss Krim, detective, Miss Krim did not know there was an investigation going on, did she?
At that time, I don't know what our officers would have told her in regards to the canvassing. I don't know. I know what I would say to somebody when canvassing, and I tend to give a little bit more information as to what's going on to solicit more of a response if there is one. I don't know what the road officers were asking the as to what they knew, what they saw, or if in fact they even told them anything that there was an active investigation going on.
So isn't it a little bit fishy?
When you get to a logical spot to stop your examination,
I'm going to ask 2 or 3 more questions. Isn't it a little bit fishy, detective, that you're investigating a missing and you get information of a strange person who is either exiting his unit or the one next door, and then you get simultaneous information that a strange person is in the area of his mother's house where his mother used to live, and you don't make the connection? You don't add up 2 and 2 to get 4?
No.
Oh. Okay. Now, did you knock or send officers to knock on the unit next door to Ramsay's to find out if someone had actually come out of that unit?
They did knock on that unit, and they received no answer.
And you now know today that at the time in question, that unit was not occupied.
It was occupied. The person who lived there was out of town.
The owner was out of town for work.
Correct.
So at the time when Darcia Plant saw the man exiting, as she described it the other day, you now know today that it couldn't have been the unit next door because no one was home there.
Correct.
Right. All right. This would be a good time to take a break, Your Honor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break for lunch. Be back prior to 2 o'clock. We'll start at 2. Do not talk about the case with anyone, and do not do any media.
All rise for the jury, please.
Trial is